Hey everyone, it's Miss Creepy Tales here. I'm just popping in to say hi and also thank you to everyone who has supported me so far. I've also noticed that a lot of people who watch my videos aren't really subscribed to me. Please feel free to subscribe. It's free and it really helps the channel. If you already are, don't forget to leave a like and also a comment to let me know your thoughts about the video. And for today, the two stories that I'll be reading are written by an amazing author, Jordan Grupe. What makes him more amazing is that he has his own channel for narrations. So make sure to check him out. The link to his channel is in the description of the video. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Some people are terrified of going on the dark web. Most people wouldn't even know where to begin. But me? I've gotten way too comfortable searching the bowels of the deep web and its darkest corners of depravity. I work as a fence of sorts, taking advantage of most people's technical ineptitude. I make a profit from selling illicit items to folks in my hometown. Once upon a time, I got these things from other sources. But nowadays, you can get anything, and I mean anything, delivered to your door with a click of a mouse. It's cheap and surprisingly reliable. There's no such thing as morals when you have a job like I do, selling all manner of questionable items. I guess because of that, you could argue that I deserved what happened to me. I was sitting in my home office, feeling bored and lonely. Having a 2-story 4-bedroom house with a giant backyard is kind of pointless when you have nobody to share it with. And a thought occurred to me again that I should get a dog. People on Instagram and Facebook had dogs, and they all looked content and happy with their lives, out in the sun playing frisbee and rolling around on blankets in the grass. Why couldn't that be me? It had been a while since I had a real girlfriend too, so the thought of using the pooch as an icebreaker for talking to women also crossed my mind, and I got up the courage to finally do it. Then and there, deciding to get a puppy that I could raise up to be a loyal and faithful companion, to share my big house, which felt so empty. And without really thinking about it, I did what I always did when I wanted to buy something. I opened the Tor browser on my laptop and went to my favorite illicit site. For some reason, the idea of going to a normal website or to a breeder or pet store didn't cross my mind until later. In retrospect, that would have made a lot more sense. I typed in dog in the search bar, but only one ad came up, and I clicked on it. Puppy for sale, purebred Southern Wolfhound, $500, will deliver. There was a picture of a very cute little black dog. I had never heard of a Southern Wolfhound before. It didn't look like one that I had ever seen. And then again, I didn't know much about dogs. Not being one for shopping around, I punched in my credit card info and clicked on the buy button. A few days later, a wide-eyed and nervous-looking delivery man knocked on my door. At his feet sat an oversized dog crate that was pitch black inside. Nothing could be seen within it. His trembling hands passed me a tablet, and I signed for the delivery and brought the heavy crate into my house. The dog was a lively one, I thought to myself. When I picked up the crate, it started moving restlessly inside, feeling more like a giant python than a puppy. Its weight didn't seem to match what I had seen in the picture. I wondered briefly if there had been some sort of shipping mistake, and I almost ran back after the delivery guy. But when I opened it up, there it was. An adorable black puppy wandered out hesitantly and then ran over to me. My fears were instantly assuaged as the little scamp began to lick my face and I fell on my back laughing. I let it jump on me and we rolled on the ground and played on the floor for a while. A smile stretched wide across my face and I felt truly happy as I played with the little dog. I took the puppy around the house for a tour, showing him the upstairs first, my bedroom and the office, and he sniffed around the guest room that I had never used and another that was for storage. I showed him the basement to the little bed that I had bought for him, and he didn't seem particularly interested in it. The strangest thing about the puppy was his weight. He was a hefty little guy. When I tried to pick him up, he weighed a ton. And it didn't make sense. The more I thought about it, the more it made me feel uncomfortable and jittery. Like the dog was a hole in the universe leading to unreality. A black hole leading to some other dark place that I didn't want to see. Trying not to dwell too much on that, mostly because it made my brain feel like it was going to turn into scrambled eggs if I did. I decided to take my new puppy out for a walk at the park. I tried to put the leash on him that I had recently bought, but it never seemed to fasten quite right. It was like the collar was too small for him, but it wasn't. I could see that clearly. My mind felt fragmented and wrong as I struggled with it, seeing two realities for a split second. In one reality, I could see my puppy. The other image was like a piece of rolled glass in a shattered mirror, revealing a tremendous wolf-like hound. Its fur was missing in places, bone and exposed muscle peeking out from between its haunches and ribs. The beast's ancient knowing face was full of sharp teeth, bared and snarling at me. Wise, experienced eyes stared through my soul, milky white with cataracts, and dirt was all over the hound and old blood like it had been digging in a graveyard. Soon, we were walking down the street to the park, despite the fact that I had no memory of leaving my house. The puppy was back to being a puppy, and he was off leash, I noticed. Still, he seemed to be managing well enough. He was staying close by me and was quick to respond when I called to him. It was as if he was already well trained despite his young age. So I decided to just continue on and kept walking towards the park with him. It was a Tuesday afternoon and it was quiet outside, and I didn't see anyone until we got there. Once we got to the park, I saw a few other people were out walking with their dogs in a large open space. It was a huge grassy field, and people would often let their dogs off leash despite the official rules to the contrary. So, I didn't feel as out of place with the pup roaming free there as I had been walking down the street with him. At first, nobody noticed us, but then the dogs picked up the puppy's scent one by one. They perked up their ears and stood stock still, staring at us, and they appeared terrified. My little pup, who I hadn't even had time to name yet, began to run towards them. I saw the stunned faces of the dog's owners. Their jaws dropped and they looked suddenly horrified for some reason. I didn't understand it. My dog was just a little puppy. They turned and began to flee. What were they so afraid of? I wondered, chasing after the little guy. And that's when it happened again. A little piece of my life went missing. 1 second, I was there in the park running after the dog. And the next, we were back home again. It was as if I had just lost the last little bit of my life. It seemed like just a second before, we had been in the park and I had been calling after my puppy as he ran away from me, chasing after him. But now, we were back in my living room watching television, an old rerun of The Office on Netflix. Pulling out my cell phone, I checked the time and it was 4:30 p.m. More than 2 hours had passed. I looked down to see the puppy was at my feet, sleeping soundly. At least he was safe. But that didn't make the blackout that I had just experienced feel any better. "What happened, boy?" I asked the dog, as if he would be able to tell me. He just kept snoring, and I noticed that there was blood on his paws and on his face. Feeling more scared than I had been in a long time, I tried to recall what had happened. Nothing came back to me, no matter how hard I searched my memories. And this had never happened before, and it really frightened me. I hoped my memories would come back to me, but they never did. And worse yet, over the following weeks it happened again and again, the blackouts. Every time that I left the house with a dog, my life would seem to disappear. Time would disappear. I would step out the door, then find myself immediately back inside with hours missing from my day. The blank periods would get longer and longer, and after a couple weeks, I was up to missing 8-hour chunks from my life, which I could remember no details from. It seemed to always be when I left the house, so I started doing that less and less, hiding indoors and never leaving my home. I ordered my groceries delivery, and I became a hermit. The puppy seemed content though, and he was growing at a rapid pace. Despite the fact that we spent all hours together, even I could notice the changes. Overnight, he seemed to sprout up a couple inches, and every morning I would see he was bigger than before. And when I looked at the dog, every worry that I had about the missing fragments of my life disappeared. Only the puppy mattered. He was what was important. The warmth I felt when I was holding him, and how he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered to him as well. Eventually, my friends started to get concerned about me. My old buddy Tom called, saying that he hadn't seen me in a while. I told him that I was fine, I just didn't want to leave the house because I had a new puppy. Telling him the truth didn't occur to me, but maybe I should have. Maybe I could have prevented what happened next. I didn't ask Tom to come over. He just stopped by one evening, a day or two after our phone call. We were such good friends that he didn't even wait for me to answer after knocking on the door. He just walked in. The dog had grown considerably by that point, and he stood up at attention when Tom walked in, and the wolfhound immediately bolted for the front door. My old friend was halfway through saying, "Hello," before he began to scream. Again, the world fragmented and split, and I saw two versions of my dog. One of them was the cute little guy that I knew and loved, and the other was the decaying graveyard hellhound that I had glimpsed before. Massive and mangy, missing bits of flesh and fur, and eager to attack. Before Tom had a chance to run, my dog was on him. The hellhound was on him. He jumped up on him, knocking him to the ground, and quickly, he was on his neck with his paws and ripped the flesh from his face while he screamed and clawed at the door, trying to escape. I ran over to pull the dog off my old friend, and when I reached out to grab him, to try to stop him as he tore muscle from bone and gauged out Tom's eyes with his teeth. He snapped at me. The sharp teeth scraped off my fingers, and I looked down horrified to see a glimpse of my own shiny white phalanges staring back at me, hair-covered knuckle flesh dangling limply from the exposed bone. I recoiled from him, screaming, and ran. Tom was already dead by the time that I got upstairs. His screams cut short as the evil wolf ripped out his larynx. Slamming the door to my office shut behind me, I locked the door. I am back in my office where all this started. I'm terrified to go back out that door, now that a hellhound has a taste of my flesh. I doubt that he'd be able to resist. I can hear him sniffing and scratching outside already, hungry again after consuming every last bit of my oldest and best friend. There wasn't much to do other than wait for my inevitable demise, so I decided to browse the dark web again. I wanted to see something. I went back to the same hidden site again, navigating through a series of back doors to get there, clicking secret icons, hidden and obscure websites. And once I arrived there, I typed the word dog into the search bar again. The same exact ad came up, identical. Puppy for sale, purebred Southern Wolfhound, $500, will deliver. This time, I decided to send a direct message to the seller, someone named Lycan. I said, "Hey, I bought one of your dogs and it just killed my friend. I'm pretty sure it's eating my memories too." Lycan answered,
"The creature you have purchased is no dog. It's a Variocolocus, an undead creature which sustains itself on flesh and blood, like a werewolf zombie, kinda."
I answered, "Sounds more like a zombie werewolf to me. Can I please have a refund?" And Lycan said,
"No, all sales are final."
Lycan has exited the chat. With that, he disappeared back into the ether and left me with a beast scratching at my door, trying to get in. It won't be long before he gets through the door, I'm sure. And when he gets in, I'm not sure what he'll do, but I've got a pretty good idea. When my brother Noel went missing last year, the police were of little help. They told us not to worry, that it was far more difficult to disappear than it was made to look on TV or in the movies. Most people turn up on their own after a while, and their families find out, or pretend to find out, that the missing person's life was a little less respectable than they had claimed, a little bit darker and more mysterious. Some people live two lives, and nobody knows it but them. I did my own research and found this much was true. According to statistics, the chance of abduction by a stranger was less probable than being struck by lightning. You were much more likely to be kidnapped by someone you knew, and far more likely still to not be kidnapped at all. But despite their vague assurances and unfounded assumptions, Noel never did come back. The weeks and months went by, and there was no word, and it seemed like the police had given up or forgotten about him. Digging through his belongings, I tried desperately to find something that would give a clue to his whereabouts, and his computer was the best bet, I figured, since it was where he spent the majority of his time. Noel had worked as a database specialist for a big company named Proteon, and despite the fact that he had explained what he had did to me a number of times, I never could properly figure it out. If people ask, I told them he was a computer programmer, since that was at least something most people could understand. He was an expert at assembling and troubleshooting computers, since my dad had owned a PC repair business when we were kids, and Noel had taken quickly to technology as a child. He was building machines for my dad's customers in his spare time when he was still in his teens, and later, he went to college for computer sciences and only become more proficient over the years. Lately, he'd been experimenting with app design in his spare time and had gotten pretty good at it. He had told me that he was working on one app in particular that was extremely different from anything else on the market. I had hoped that the other programmer that he had been working with would know something, but I tracked him down, and that resulted in a dead end as well. Upon meeting the guy I found, he was peculiar, a disheveled-looking Satanist who refused to make eye contact with me and offered no useful information. He told me Noel had been of great help in his project, but said the rest was top secret. So, I went home defeated once again. Noel's old computer was set up on my desk, so I turned it on and sat down, resolved to do some more digging. I logged into his email. Luckily, Google had saved all his passwords, so I didn't need to try to figure them out through impossible guesswork. And searching through his old emails, I had found a lot of junk mail. There was a correspondence with work and family and a few with friends, but nothing that gave any clue as to where he might be. If anything, they painted a picture of someone living an ordinary life, making plans for the future, with no indication of wanting to disappear. His phone had been left behind too, and I went through that as well, just looking for anything strange that stood out. But there was nothing. I sat there at my desk with my mouse in my hand for days, then weeks, looking for something, anything of use. I pored through his doc files, JPEGs, MP4s and MP3s, PDFs and every other damn file type that you can imagine, examining everything, desperately searching for some hint, some clue. And everything turned out to be a dead end. Of course, I called the police frequently as well, but they were of no help, and eventually went as far as to tell me to stop calling, saying that they would update me if they found anything. I had cursed at them furiously and hung up, and that had been the end of that. I went back on his computer one night to dig through some more file folders, and I noticed something that my eyes had scanned over in the past. An icon and the sea of icons that lived on the busy and disorganized desktop. It looked a bit like a purple onion with a slice cut out of it. I clicked on it, and a dialog box with a loading bar appeared briefly. Then, a purple window opened up that looked like a web browser, and I realized that was exactly what it was. Tor browser, it said at the top. I knew little about these things, but understood that this was an untraceable way to use the internet since it encrypted everything being done online. Thinking back, I remembered Noel talking about using Tor. He said it was much safer and that it couldn't be traced. But why would he care about being traced? I had thought at that time. Maybe there was a good reason after all. Suddenly, my cell phone chimed and I went over to it quickly and I looked at the message. It was a URL. Another text came through, and this one was a typed message from someone.
Enter the URL on Tor.
Another ding, another message.
Tell no one about this. If you contact anybody, I'm gone. I'm your only chance at finding him.
I looked at Noel's computer. That was when I noticed the little lens at the top of his monitor that was the built-in webcam. The red light was on next to it, indicating that it was recording. Someone was watching me, and they could see what I was doing on the computer as well. I was sure of it. I texted back, "Doing it now." After typing the URL exactly as instructed, the screen turned into a login for a website of some kind. I received another text.
Password is his favorite movie. You have 2 minutes.
I didn't need 2 minutes for that at least, since I knew it was Fight Club, as it had been since that movie had been released. My hands were shaking as I typed the password into the box. I was beginning to feel very concerned, but also a bit hopeful at this sudden turn of events. A chat window opened up and a message promptly appeared from someone named Shadowcat. Shadowcat said,
You're his brother, I take it.
I typed back a response quickly, afraid of losing whoever this was. It felt like they could disappear at any second back into the ether, and I would never find them again. I answered, Yes. Do you know where he is?
Yes.
I was a little confused as to why my name was appearing in the chat window as Mark, since that wasn't my name, and I had never entered any identifiers. Was that an alias that Noel used online? I wondered. I asked, Is he okay? I took a deep breath, waiting for the answer.
More or less.
What do you want?
You'll find out soon.
Another message came through, showing another URL. Shadowcat said,
Keep chat open. Create a new window and go to the URL.
And I answered, Okay. I typed in the URL and found myself at another website. It was a bit like eBay, except instead of selling old records and jewelry, people were selling guns, explosives, drugs, and some very disturbing categories of pornography. What the hell is this? Shadowcat.
Never mind your questions for now. Do what I say, or he dies.
Suddenly, an image appeared, replacing the chat window. It showed my brother Noel chained to a wall in a stressed position. He was blindfolded and gagged, but I could hear his muffled screams for help. My hands were shaking, nearly uncontrollably, now that I had to type and retype my reply several times before it made any sense. How do I know you'll give him back?
Trust me or don't. The choice is yours. If you refuse, he dies. If you do what I say, I will give him back to you unharmed.
It seemed there was no other option. I felt trapped and hopeless, depressed, in this horrible situation that I had found myself in. If I called the police, he would see me do it on the webcam. If I said no, he would kill Noel.
You have 10 seconds to decide.
And a countdown began on the screen.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Okay.
Good. Here is your shopping list. Get everything on it.
A long list of items was included next, and my eyes widened further as I read through it. What the hell is all of this for? What are you planning to do? The chat window closed suddenly, and I was left alone in my living room, my heart beating fast and hard in my chest. Only the other website remained now, the one with the black market guns and explosives, and everything else illegal that you could find, and everything else illegal that you could have delivered to your doorstep. I debated calling the police again, telling them these new developments, or even going to the police station. But what if the kidnapper found out? He obviously had ways to spy on me. Probably you'll say I'm an idiot for what I did next, but I really wanted to get my brother back. So, I filled the online shopping cart with the requested illicit items and entered my credit card information, cringing as I hit enter. I guess I would have to cancel my credit card since I didn't trust the vendors one bit, but at least that part was done. The package arrived in the mail surprisingly quickly, and as soon as I had brought it inside, I got another text message. It invited me to another chat on tour, where I was given a physical address. They said to meet them there with a package and that they would give me back my brother. I was to tell no one where I was going. It was dark by the time that I had arrived at the old warehouse in the industrial section of town. The place was abandoned and there were no lights to illuminate the parking lot as I pulled in. My trunk had some cargo in it that would surely get me a couple decades in prison, if not more. Terrified, I sat in my car, still gripping the steering wheel tightly with both hands, despite the car being turned off, and I had no idea what was going to happen next. My cell phone chimed and I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was a text message.
Come inside through the east door.
I did a bit of a quick geography to determine which way I was facing and decided that was the door that I was looking at, right in front of me. Taking a deep breath, I got out of the car. I popped the trunk and grabbed the duffel bag that I had brought with the illicit items packed inside. The gravel crunched beneath my feet as I made my way across the parking lot. My hand shook as I reached out and grasped the doorknob, turned it, and went into the dark cavernous space inside the warehouse. As difficult as it was to see outside, it was even darker in there. Taking a few more frightened steps forward, I found my eyes did not adjust to the dark. The door clanged and shut behind me, and I jumped, feeling my heart skip a beat. "Hello?" My voice echoed back behind me.
Did you bring everything?
I jumped, startled, when I heard the voice. It was raspy and high-pitched and made the hair stand up on the back of my neck at the sound of it, like fingernails across a chalkboard. Yes.
Good. Bring it this way.
Terrified, I stepped forward into the pitch blackness, unsure if I would run into something. I moved slowly and deliberately, hoping not to hurt myself.
He's got it for us.
He has it all.
Yes.
Suddenly, I realized there was not just one voice speaking, but many. They were all around me, surrounding me in the darkness, and I felt their movements in the air around me and heard sounds like the wind blowing during a thunderstorm.
Poisons.
Acids.
Knives.
Explosives.
Boomed a voice from the corner.
Guns and bullets and snake venom.
I heard them moving closer now, inching towards me. Their voices were in my ears as I backed away. "Where is my brother? Show him to me or you get nothing." I was terrified, but determined to get Noel back, come hell or high water.
Or maybe we'll keep you as well. Little brother, maybe someone will want you back badly enough to bring us more offerings, more dark treasures.
I could feel them very close now, could hear their breathing and feel their proximity to me, causing my skin to break out in goosebumps. My mind raced, desperate to think of what I could do to get out. These creatures, these demons, whatever they were, had no intention of letting me leave. And I had a sudden brainstorm. I reached out into my pocket and pulled out my cell phone. Quickly, I hit the button for the flashlight function. If there was anything these creatures would be affected by, I guess by their choice of habitat, and it would be light. These are demons born of darkness, my lizard brain whispered. They are not accustomed to anything but blackness. And the white light cut through the darkness like a knife. I heard screams and saw a brief haze of smoke appear. Around the edges of the light, I caught glimpses of vague forms of humanoid shapes. They recoiled from the light, and I felt and heard them moving towards me from behind. Spinning, I cast the light just in time to see one of the demons nearly face to face with me. His form was massive and bear-like, huge fangs and long sharp talons raised in the air, ready to slit my throat. His red flesh bubbled and burst open. He evaporated into a misty haze when the light hit him, screaming in a deafening baritone. Realizing that the light had the power to destroy them now, or at least send them back to hell where they came from, I spun around and round with the light, trying to incinerate them all. And I saw them flying bat-like away. Others jumped up to the high ceiling and hid in the girders and beams above. I saw something at the end of the huge space, and I shone my light that direction. It was Noel. He was shackled to a wall on the far side of the warehouse. He was gagged and blindfolded and moving. I saw dark shadows around him, moving quickly, and realized it was more of the demons guarding him. Running over towards him, I heard the sounds of more of them chasing after me, racing like monkeys across the steel beams above, matching my speed. I blasted the demons with bright light from my phone as I got closer to him. Their shadow skin began to sizzle and burst into flame, and they howled like banshees in moving away. There was no key for the chains holding him, but I was prepared. I grabbed the bolt cutters from my bag, a last-second impulse buy from my trip to the hardware store. Part of me was worried that the people that I was dealing with would not let him free willingly. I had wanted any advantage that I could get. The bolt cutters went through the chains with an effort, and the one holding his wrist snapped with a satisfying noise, and his arm fell down limply to his side. And before I could think too much about what that meant, I spun around at the sudden sound of movement behind me. I screamed as the claws of something terrible raked across my back. The demon disappeared back into the shadows above us, leaping into the air like a bat, and I saw flapping wings as it went back into the rafters. I pulled the blindfold and gag from Noel's face, and saw he was barely conscious. It felt terrible to do it, but I slapped him hard across the face to try and get him to wake up. He groaned and stared, but didn't open his eyes. And I felt a sharp pain in my neck suddenly, like knives there, and I spun around quickly again to try and catch it in the light. There was a hint of smoke as my flashlight caught the edge of it, but it was too fast and quickly disappeared again. I was suddenly feeling frantic and terrified for my life. They were becoming more bold. My hand stung after the next hard slap to Noel's face, but it accomplished what I needed. He woke up and spit blood from his mouth. Ow! What the hell? Noel, wake up! You need to hold this light. Move it around. Keep them away. It took him a few seconds to understand, but I thrust the phone in his hand anyways and began to work on the other chain holding his right wrist. His eyes were wide with fear and his gaze darted around the room as I continued working on the chains. The one holding his other wrist snapped with an effort, and I got down on the floor to work on the shackles attached to his ankles. He was moving the flashlight around frantically, but it seemed to be working. Warm blood trickled down my neck and my back from my injuries, and I felt it turn cold on my skin. How the hell did you wind up here? I asked, once he was finally freed from the chains. That damned Satanist programmer. He summoned those things from hell. What? How? Never mind. Just let's get out of here. I took the flashlight back from him and used it as a weapon, shining it in every direction, and often just in time as I saw the demon scatter from the light like cockroaches each time that I swung it around. Once we reached the door, I threw it open, revealing the parking lot, and we ran from there as fast as we could back to the car. We had escaped, or so we thought. I wish I could say that everything is better now, that we fled from the demons in that warehouse and never saw them again. But those unnatural creatures knew no boundaries. They were not inclined to stay contained within the walls of that warehouse, and they were not pleased that we had escaped with their treasures, which I promptly dumped off at the police station, anonymously of course. Although I got my brother back, neither one of us will ever feel safe again. The lights in my home stay on all hours of the day and night now. Noel is the same way. I sleep during the day and surround myself with lights at night, terrified until the sun comes up again. What am I afraid of, you ask? A blackout, a blown fuse, a burnt-out light bulb, and they happen more and more lately. Always I see them in the shadows, waiting, watching, patient, for their chance, for darkness to fall. And here are the top comments for my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.